Salutations, all. I'm
Greetings.
CMG.
And I'm Master Shinlo.
Together, we are
Deep Sector. Yeah. Here with our guest, Michael.
Yeah, Michael Alcazar here.
Sweet.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to meet you. It was my first time meeting you, I believe. Unless I seen you way back in... Because I used to hang around West, but I didn't go to the school, so...
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been some time. I think, when did you stop teaching at West?
I want to say 2016.
Okay. Huh. So that's how we met, through West High School, back in the day, my freshman year. Were you teaching before 20?
Yeah. I've been a teacher for 27 years prior to that. I taught in Fort Collins and Greeley, Inglewood School District. Then I did some university stuff, Auburn, University of Alabama, Birmingham, Georgia Tech. Then I came back and started subbing and looking for jobs within DPS, exploring the different models of education, and the generations model really stood out to me, and so I was excited to be able to teach there.
Yeah, it was I don't know. I thought that West in general was... Did you think that first year was wild, like in your perspective?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, I mean, it was probably one of the more difficult jobs I've ever had to do, teaching. Just about the level of work that was expected. I inherited a classroom that hadn't been updated probably since the 70s, and some of the equipment was from the 40s, and so a lot of things were broken and not working, and it was utilized for a lot of storage. And so I spent that part of that first semester getting that space cleaned up, and then utilizing a classroom indoor, which really wasn't conducive to my teaching style. And I really needed that space to have been amped up before, and it would have been nice to have hands on it. But then also a huge thing that happened that first semester was the passing of my grandfather right in the middle of the first month of school. And so it was a hard decision to not go back and be a part of that remembrance. But I think he would have been proud of me for doing the job that I did at the school under the circumstance. But yeah, it was a difficult first year.
Yeah, because from the student perspective, it was it was rather wild, rather out of control. Yeah. If you want to pull that a little bit closer to you. Yeah, man, it was, you really inspired me a lot and taught me a lot of great stuff, as a young kid. And one thing that always stuck with me, just it's the importance of, just working out, being able to, pull your weight. But in general, we did a lot of, because your class was, I forget exactly, but construction, essentially, right? Physical labor.
Yeah, so I inherited a college and career readiness course that was designed by the Generations model. My background is in health and wellness and physical education, but I have always grown up doing construction and agricultural and restaurant work. And so they kind of gave me an open pattern to get kids thinking about what it goes to be college and career ready. And so I picked the things that I was passionate about, and permaculture was one of them. Construction technology, not passionate about, but I respect it because I grew up doing it, and a lot of family members are still in the business. And then restauranting, that was the other big family business. Real estate I never really got into. There's a lot of people in my family in real estate, but I didn't really do that. The other stuff is where I spent my time. And, permaculture was relatively new word to me, but I had been raised by a traditional ecological knowledge practitioner, my grandmother, and my parents both also had been raised in that way. And so they had stuff to share, even though they weren't living that lifestyle. My grandmother was, and so it had a huge impact on me growing up. And so then I just wanted to share it with the class. So I got to do a standalone curriculum on those three areas, and depending on the grade and the progression, I scaffolded that curriculum to those students. So, yeah, right out the gate, all new stuff, first time. The school district is trying this new model of education, intensives, right? And I'm getting kids for 5.5 hours a day, and then having to, design and work through it with them. And so I was one of the only intensive teachers that was there the whole time, that from the start of the school till the model ended. And almost all the interviews that I saw and heard with students was that intensives was the only reason they came to school. And I had a lot of kids who dropped out right after intensives ended, and that was really sad, So I think it was foundationally a good model and a direction to go in the midst of the chaos of, these kids are very unhappy about the leadership and the teachers that they lost, and they're not gonna be gentle with us newcomers trying to hold space. But I think we all did the best we could in that circumstance, and like I said, the majority of the staff did not did make it through that first semester. Heck, we lost our principal mid-year. So it was a tough circumstance to rise into, but I think by that second semester, my class was really exciting. Kids were really actively engaged, showing up on time, understood the rules, understood who I was, that I was going to be genuine and firm. And yeah, we really did some amazing things that first year, even though there was a whole lot of nonsense going on in the main building. It wasn't coming in effect in my classroom that first year. So I got really lucky to get that building kind of away from the main building and put all my sweat equity into that, and then create a lab that really was moving in a direction that I saw as positive and powerful for getting young kids inspired about their futures. So it was a mixed bag. It was a tough year.
Yeah, it was nice. I definitely did prefer the Butler, compared to the classroom for sure. So you ran the computer lab then, after they turned it into that, or no?
No. So when they decided to move away from the generations model, and they turned that into the computer lab, they moved me to the concurrent enrollment classes that kids were taking online. So it was a very boring job, and basically just monitoring and answering questions in the main building, and I just saw the direction that it was going, and I wasn't really confident that it was what was best for students.
And so have you taught in the classroom like that since then, or no?
I subbed a couple years after that. Really got excited about elementary, working with real little ones, and then junior high school kids. But nothing really grabbed my attention like that generations model did. And nothing's going to change if we keep on doing the same things. And unfortunately, this school district is just designed to keep changing things, keep moving the target. So it makes them feel like they've got something to do and they're moving in a direction, but then they just throw it all out and moving in another direction, and if it's not what's best for kids, then why are we doing it? You know, and so it just made sense for me to walk away.
How would you say then? Because you said you've taught in other states too as well, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Does Colorado compare? Like, is it across the board similar, or is it like by state, you would say?
Well, you know, you're going to have circumstances that are greatly affected by economics, and that is going to be true generally across the boards. We would consider West model high risk or at risk inner city circumstance. But I've dealt with the same type of mentality with, you know, poor black folks from the country, you know, and still in their head, you know, they have a shared psychosis of impoverishment, and what that means. Like, you know, in the hierarchy of capitalism, if you're at the bottom, you're poor intellectually, you're poor physically, and it never was a reality for me growing up. I was the richest cat in the hood, you know. I was always hustling to make money. I always could buy whatever I wanted, and I got to do whatever I wanted, and people just left me alone. Now, I know that was a privilege of my size and intelligence, and you know, back then, all I knew how to do was fight. That's all I really knew how to do. I'd been fighting since I was a little kid, big family, you know. It's just what you did, wrestle and fight. And so my dad always called me champ, and I was in boxing and karate and stuff before I even remember. You know, he's like, oh yeah, I'd take you at 3 to the gym. You know, they wouldn't believe that you were only 3 years old. So I just leaned into that, and that kind of, you know, framed who I was. But then when I realized I had a choice, then, you know, then there was the work of holding myself accountable to those choices. A lot of young people these days, they don't see that as an option. They don't have that woke moment where, aha, like, I got 2 arms, I got 2 legs, I can do anything anybody else is doing, and I do not have to be a victim of my circumstance. And so across the boards, no matter where you are, that's where the problem lies, is when people don't recognize that they can exercise their free will and put in some hard work and get themselves out of that circumstance. Because it is a lot easier just to be a byproduct of your pattern, right? Just do what you know. That is easier, you know. So, yeah, I'd say, you know, generally there are some things that are the same about the mindset. You know, culturally, of course, they're different about how they're expressed. But the base of all of it is you know, based in how societally we fit into this hierarchical framework.
No doubt. Yeah, man. Life's a trip. It is crazy that, I don't know, that money is a defining factor. You know, a lot of things. You know, just I mean, it's just crazy. You know, in capitalistic society, you know, that's just kind of what it is, though.
Yeah, you know, but that's the truth. It is what it is. It's an economic theory that is being lived out through our practices and behaviors. We need to understand that the ethical foundation of it is based in stolen land, stolen resources, and built on the backs of stolen people. And now they have you convinced that it is normal to have an enormous amount of debt in order to exist within that system, when there is more money than there is capital on the planet. There's more money in circulation than there is capital on the planet. Like, that's why they switch it to a debt-based system. So for every dollar that you spend, you're guaranteed to have to spend $10 more just for that $1. That's just how credit works. And that's on average. When you move up the food chain, it gets even worse, right? And then you just got to get accustomed to that pattern. It seems like a pretty ridiculous thing to be investing our energy in, especially in this moment in time when we have all this access to information. And there's been plenty of wise systems that have existed in the past, right, that showcase what it is to live prosperously in abundance, right? I always think of that Columbus story, dude showing up in armor in the middle of summer, hotter than heck, swords drawn, and then there's this naked people and all this food running around. They're just like, what the hell's wrong with these dudes? It's a funny thing to imagine, but yeah, it's, the normalcy of it, It's all off. Oh, there.
Yeah, it is a. Sorry. It's part of like the patterns thing, right? We kind of like get stuck in the flow, and just like it's just the way it is, right? And you keep going with it, and then we're like so deep into it, it's just ingrained.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of philosophical narratives about what it is, to be a byproduct of circumstance. I mean, I got a minor in philosophy, and so I had to read a lot of those, fictional narratives about how you react to it, and bottom line is that we don't have a choice in the pattern that we're born in, right? It defines, a historical record of behavior that we inherit because we respect and love our families, right? So we don't know any better. It's only through education, access to information, and that you become knowledgeable of the fact that these patterns, exist, but you have to put in the work. It's like, to know something is not the same as to teach something, and even more importantly, it's not the same as to live something, right? Live something different. And that takes integrity. And unfortunately, that's at a big loss in this moment in time. Holding yourself accountable to what you say. I mean, right now, we just live in the big crazy, where you're literally watching people change scripts right in front of you. You're like, yeah, that's actually not what happened. I was there. I saw it. You did this. You said that. No, till they're blue in the face. Well, you can't take ownership of the fact that you made a mistake. I mean, to err is human, right? It's like you should have the integrity to acknowledge it yourself, ask for forgiveness, and orient ourselves to moving forward so that we can do things differently as we go forward. Because everybody's going to bring their junk to the table, right? But just like in the wilderness, for some of us, we don't get rid of all the wolves. We don't get rid of all the rattlesnakes. We don't get rid of all the mosquitoes, of the flies, because we understand that they have a place and purpose within that ecology, right? They're serving a niche. But yet, in society, we tend to just shun people and get rid of them if we don't think that they are good enough. And, as an educator, I just learned, you don't give up on anybody. Kids today, you may not like, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to grow up into somebody that you could be proud of. Or that's going to come back, I got lucky with you, Isaac. Going to come back and call me out, almost a decade later and say, hey, man, you had influence on me, purpose. I respect you. I want to hear some more wisdom from you, I mean, to me, that's the legacy that I want to leave. I don't want my name to be remembered. I want people to be, thoughtful and mindful of, the good things that I do and I did. And oftentimes I'm doing some work in the woods, and I don't put a name tag on it, Yeah. But people just come see, animals just come see, and they know, there was some love and attention put into this, and it was to create this abundant circumstance so that I have food to eat, right? So I have the opportunity to raise my young safe and find peace and joy, because it ain't always going to be that way, and we know that. We know that it's going to be hard times, and right now, I think for a lot of young people, this is one of those hard times, especially coming out of this pandemic. right? Really got people thinking. You think about what colonialism brought to this continent, right? That story about Columbus. You got to understand, like, they're coming out of like the worst circumstance in Europe. That's why they have to, go out there and try to find all these resources from other places, because they've already deforested, they've already killed all the animals. Then they got each other sick, and they've gone through all this plague, famine, pandemic, right? And they're like, oh crap, and then they bring that mindset, that mentality, over here to a place that historically has been documented as the most abundant circumstance ever designed by man, still responsible for 70% of the food that's sourced around the planet. All its genetics came from first contact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just like, people didn't necessarily have to build guns and build, cannons and armor and all this stuff, because they had so much, they didn't have to focus on living in scarcity. And when they did, they had the intelligence to give the land time to rest and recover and move on, right? Find other opportunities and go be as gentle and as interactive with the land so that it could produce enough. It could produce enough to feed. That's the craziest part. You think about this: 97% of all the animals that are original to this continent, all of their numbers are depleted. 40% of them are extinct, just gone forever. And then the 3% that are keeping higher numbers, their numbers are down by 80-90%, depending on what species. So stories that I heard growing up about walking on the backs of fish, shooting an arrow in the sky and hitting a bird, squirrels being able to travel all the way from Canada to Florida without touching the ground. Like all that circumstance is gone, and we may never have that again. Not if we keep moving in the directions that we're moving.
Yeah, man. A lot of destruction. But, so, permaculture? What exactly is that, and so what have you been doing with that recently?
All right, so, I left education in the traditional sense. I have been doing some online classes, some community college stuff, and a lot of workshops and festivals. And so I teach permaculture. It's relatively new design science from the 70s. And what I like about it is the archetype. It gives you a very simple model that explains a lot of stuff. It's not the same as traditional ecological knowledge, which is bioregionally applied to ecological circumstances based on a generational model of working with the land in that specific circumstance. And so those are the differences between what I do, traditional ecological knowledge and permaculture. In the city, I think permaculture is a great prescription for how we should move forward. And ethically, it's founded in what's best for the planet, what's best for people, and then how do you distribute or share those resources fairly within your community. And so that foundationally is what got me interested in permaculture and working in that direction. But it's a hot mess like everything else is. The design science of it isn't, but philosophically, the applications of it, the social interactions, the logistics, those are where all the big problems are. Most things don't work out in capitalism because of lack of capital. Most things don't work out in permaculture because of lack of social investment. People just can't get along and work together. Egos get involved. And when you're doing stuff inexpensively and there's not a capital return, that it's normal for us, acculturated the way we have been, to walk away. And I don't. I don't. So I'm doing this permaculture thing. My company's In Action Climate Mitigation Brokerage. The hope for that is that I can broker deals between landowners, governments, cities, private individuals and stuff to work with them and their land to start moving it in a direction towards a healthy ecological system. So that's what the permaculture is for me. We have I have several big projects I'm working on here in the state and a few out of state and out of the country. Got a project in Chile, Costa Rica. Alabama, New Mexico, Pine Ridge, and Colorado. Here in Colorado, we're going to be opening Noir Cooperative in the Leary Swansea in the Viva apartment complex. Come see us this spring. We'll be bringing you locally sourced foods from Colorado, and we're going to have a little delicatessen, and so we'll also be cooking and preparing some homemade stuff that is, nutritionally rich, and doing farmers markets, and then we have a farm. We're doing eggs right now. It's Noir Farms. It's out in Bennett. It's about 45 minutes outside of town, and then got some stuff going on in the Springs and Fort Collins with the city of Wheat Ridge. We hope, keeping our fingers crossed. I'm on a design team to be putting together one of the first vertical farming solutions integrated into a city plan within the United States. I'd like to work on cloning there and just get all the best genetics from around the state and start grafting trees and cloning trees and getting some good genetics back into our ecology. Hopefully we can start intensively planting these things within our cityscape, and then we change the look and feel of how we live and interact with the food around us and start to get close to that abundance that was first witnessed in 1492.
Yeah, it's sweet, man. Yeah, it's important. It's as you taught me. So much of a lot of urban cities are food deserts. That's really awesome that you're being able to provide that and getting out there and getting the stuff to people who need it.
Yeah, so we'll be doing a all statewide farmers market symposium this Saturday out at Noir Farms. So you can look me up, contact me. I'll also be doing some short prairie grassland restorations in Manitou Springs with flying pigs coming up in the spring. I think it's April 29th. Love to see you out there. We'll be having a permaculture action day at Aslan for Sonic Bloom. If anybody's going to Sonic Bloom for the festival, I'll be helping orchestrate the work at Aslan. It's where you basically come and you spend the day on the land. It's native led, and we're doing good things with the ecosystem and for the people on that land. They have one of the oldest, if not the oldest, powwows there every year for the last 27, 28 years. And then go, enjoy the festival and come by the Permaculture Action Network tent and sit on some classes and learn some more about what's going on around the state and around the country. Ryan Rising, Permaculture Action Network, is hosting that. He's out of country right now teaching in Vision Festival in Costa Rica. I would have liked to go, but I have some previous obligations in Alabama and here in Colorado, and so I couldn't juggle and organize it all, but keep my fingers crossed that next year I'll be at Envision. Tribal Vision is another one that I work with. a great festival happens in New Mexico, and then occasionally I have worked with Arise, and so we'll see. I'm trying to get a few more festivals. Definitely interested in some more workshops. I'll be doing some with Sunnyside Farms over here in the Sunnyside neighborhood. Coming spring and summer as well, and then out at Noir Farms, I'll be showcasing over the next year my regenerative toolkit, which is a lot of like those class projects we did at West with permaculture, where there's this alternative way of thinking, and with this regenerative toolkit, it's gonna kind of showcase like how we can utilize low energy systems that are thoughtfully integrated into our living circumstance, so that we have closer access to food, closer access to people, closer access to opportunities to make money. And so I'll be doing a barn raising out there probably in the fall. I'd love to have everybody come out, listen to some great music, have some good food, and then help me get my little project off the ground out there. Look forward to in the future having young people come through that property and learn, and at the same time see what economics can be made in that type of close proximal organization orienting ourselves towards a regenerative toolkit. And it's a really neat circumstance. It's been a abandoned piece of land that hasn't been agriculturally used, so it's just basically a lot of weeds and stuff. So to like really see where we're starting at ground zero and how we're going to move forward as a community, I'm super excited about that.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I've heard stories about people, talking about stuff like that, but I've never heard somebody involved with something like that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, there are a few circumstances like that around the country and in the state where people are living this way. It's just hard if you want to, compete with the Joneses. It's not, it's not exciting. It's not glamorous, but you'll eat every day. You'll smile every day, and you'll have an opportunity to like really be at peace and breathe. But, the pattern always is calling you to want to make more money so that you can buy a whole bunch of stuff that you don't need, because that's just the way that you're acculturated. And as I've gotten older, I've just recognized that's not a necessity for me. It's not high on my list of priorities to impress anybody else with what I have. It's my richness comes from excited about waking up in the morning, with a big smile on my face, and really embracing the opportunity of the day to do good things, and just live in a good way with other people.
So I know. So what's your eating habits like then? Do you eat a lot of what you grow, and stuff like that, or like? Do you still eat out? What are things like that like for you?
Yeah, so my eating habits are pretty poor. I'll be the first to admit that I'm a victim of my inherited behavioral patterns. I grew up, like I said, pretty poor. Beans and rice pretty much every day. I used to hate it. I used to just like when I grew up, I'm never going to eat beans again. And so, to have to be in a position where I can afford to, eat what I want and what I feel like, and to live in a country where we have, a variety of, different stuff. And, I always loved, Vietnamese one day, Mexican the next, Chinese the next, it's like, that's neat. But I do try to make wise decisions in that. And, one thing that is super valuable to me is intermittent fasting. So spending as long time as I can being at peace and not letting that hunger get the best of me and have it affect my attitude or my behavior for as long as I can. That's a big deal. So, I'm down to, one meal 3 times a week. The other 4 days, 2 meals, not really a snacker. And, I have done a good job on a lot of things. I'm not drinking sodas or energy drinks or any of that stuff. I'm mostly just beer and water. And even that, I've significantly reduced the amount of beer I'm taking in, just because the calorie load can be high, And once you understand more about your own body's physiology, then you recognize how much less you need to actually exist, and that you will feel better if you're not carrying the excess weight, and you're allowing your body, listening to your body, and allowing your body to work towards a better homeostasis. Because aging's the hardest thing that none of us can get away from, but we can slow it down. And as I get older, it's just going from the stressful times at West. I mean, heck, I ballooned up to over 300 pounds. I was like 333 when I was out West, and that was a very uncomfortable way to be, but it was the stress and not poor eating habits and working 10, 12 hours a day. But since leaving, I've really got to reflect on who I want to be, and just because I was an athlete before, if I'm not doing anything athletic now, I cannot eat the same amount of calories, So I've had to adjust, and I think that is just recognizing that if I want to be considered wise, it has to be expressed through my behaviors and actions, and so so that's where I'm at with my food struggle. But I do eat organic as often as I can. I do tend to make better decisions about not fried food and eating salads and getting my vegetables in and stuff like that, even though it's not always what I want to do, because I love French fries, I love burgers, I love pizza, it's all good, but I limit it. Pizza once a month, burger once a week, but every day some fruits and vegetables.
Definitely. What I realized, it's all just about, I think a lot of the time you make it, at least I would make it a bigger beast in your head, like the whole idea about cutting out soda, right? For back in the day, it used to be so hard for me, it's thinking oh, no soda, but it's really just about single choices, when it comes to the choice soda or water, just get a water, and it starts with just single choices, right? And then it builds up over time when you create those habits. But yeah, it's everything's a process.
It is. Yeah, change is not a light switch. It is a process. And so, but like I said, if you hold yourself accountable to it, and you change. I remember when I used to hate water. I'd be like, rah! And then you had to learn. I had to teach myself how to love water. What am I looking for? And now I'm like, I'm not drinking that. It's got too much chlorine in it. I can smell it, right? It hasn't been filtered yet. It's just you just start to get, different. Oh, I got to have lemon in it. I got to have lime in it. Those are my treats. And it's just reframing that in your head. And it's made it easier. And now, occasionally, I will get nostalgic for a soda. I have it. It almost instantly gets my stomach upset. I'm burping. Stuff. And I'm like, okay, how did I ever get used to this? And it's not that great. It's just sweet. It's just not. It's just not. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. If I could convince myself I didn't need beer, then that would be the next step in my growth. Just do the water thing. But we got to have fun. None of us are going to be perfect. We got to be forgiving of ourselves, and stay positive, and just orient ourselves to who we say we want to be. And I want to be healthy when I get old. I don't want to be in a wheelchair, or I got things to do.
Yeah,
got to get down to Chile and Costa Rica, and can't be doing that if I'm not healthy enough.
It's the truth. It's really cool about your fasting. I've been working on that myself. But so it's just part of your everyday life, or
every day.
Yeah.
And I got lucky in that it was part of my my grandmother's practice to fast. Like anytime before celebration and stuff, we fasted the day before, usually. And it was just like, you're going to eat a whole bunch of stuff tomorrow. That's why we're doing all this cooking and, prepping and stuff. We're not going to eat today, so tomorrow we can celebrate, And so that always really stood out to me in my head. Because, when you're young, you don't understand things. I remember, we used to get these little glasses of orange juice, these little glasses. And this is how they came forever, right? Now you go buy, a gallon of orange juice, nobody's going to think about it. Weird if you drink that whole thing. Back in the day, that's all you got, little 2 ounces of orange juice. That was your treat. And
That's crazy.
Yeah. So if you ever see those little glasses, that's what they're for. They're just a little bit, bigger than shot glasses, and they're just for orange juice. And you're like, okay, so they knew we didn't need all this sugar. They knew we didn't need all this sugar, and it is what's led to all the problems, of today, health-wise, right? Diabetes is a real thing, and you can't go from 500 years ago before first contact, no sugar, no refined white sugar at all on this continent. And then these European settlers brought it, and it was a treat, like 1 pound of sugar a year. The average American right now is over 100 pounds of sugar in a year, right? And every day, and then you understand why, obesity and because sugar is really it. You can't lose weight if you have sugar in your bloodstream. You just can't. It's the simplest thing that your body runs off of, right? It's what all your muscles need to generate energy. That stuff you learned back in science. Remember what that's called?
What, biology?
That is life science, but the Krebs cycle. So right, this is, so the mitochondria in your cells breaking down the sugar and turning it into ATP, right? And that's what your body runs off of. So if you have high blood sugar, your body never needs to break down fat, because when it's breaking down fat, it's just converting it into sugar and putting it into your blood so they can go through this cellular cycle. So if you really, really are mindful of that equation, right, and you're reducing as much sugar as you can within your bloodstream, and then eating healthy and making choices, then your body will have no choice but to start to convert fat into sugar so that it can sustain, and so then over time. And unfortunately, the way we're designed, you really have to stress that circumstance out, because our body's always designed to, like, if you put it in an extreme circumstance, it will find balance within that, right? It'll find a homeostasis. So you have to constantly be switching that up. If you want to get, if you really want to get yourself to be where you want to be, and then once you get there, then your body will go back to homeostasis, and it'll be easier to maintain. It'll be a lot more difficult to. You can have more cheat days and stuff like that, but you have to work at it, and since I left West, I've worked at it. I've been down to 255, and I'm going in the right direction. Hope to get down to 238, ish. It's like the best shape of my life. That's where I was, and get my strength back and stuff like that. But it's a lot of compromise and sacrifice to do that, because back then I used to spend 2 hours in the gym, and I just can't afford to do that anymore. But then also I can't afford not to do that. So I got to figure out, balance. So that's why this farm life and physically using my body, all the knowledge I have about my kinesthetic and spatial awareness and movement really plays a huge part in how I work, right? So I don't get overuse injuries. I'm not burning myself out. I'm changing my movement pattern, so I'm not using the exact same muscles repetitively over and over. And having a lot of diversity to what I'm doing. That's, it's kind of the other, big advantage to the lifestyle way I'm living right now, is I get to do a lot of really cool stuff and switch it up every day. Do stuff like take this morning with you, going to, do some house projects, some business projects, and then business meetings, and then prepping for this conference we're having out at the farm this weekend and stuff.
Man, yeah, you sound really busy. I truly appreciate you cutting the time out to come and speak with us.
Yeah, I appreciate your knowledge and your life experience. It's good to see people really living, not just wasting their lives away and doing something with themselves. I know a lot of people that just let life go, too soon, I feel like. So I'm not trying to be one of those people, which is why I've been working on getting involved in more things and, just seeing what I could do with myself, make of myself in this life. Yeah. So it's really an honor to meet you. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. Got about 10 minutes left with you guys. You have any particular question?
Also, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 54.
Okay. And you're from California, right?
Yeah, born and I can tell you a little bit about who I am and stuff. Yeah, so I was born and raised in inner city San Jose. It was difficult circumstances back then in the 70s, 60s, 70s. So, survived a lot of stuff that, kids shouldn't have to go through. Had opportunity to, my mom remarried, spent some time in mainstream America. Took several tries before I understood the pattern. It was very much a fish out of water story for a lot of it. My mom's most wise counsel was watch what they do and do what they do, and every other time just bite your tongue. If you have any questions, you can ask. So, was confused a lot, but was paying attention to how other people were living and stuff, and knew I was a foreigner and not really part of that, but doing my best to fit in. For a long time, I didn't understand those patterns. I didn't want to, be a part of them because they were, I saw, all the bad things that are associated with it that were like, jump right out as a parent to me. And then, one of the worst possible things that could ever happen, my younger brother was murdered. And it was a defining moment where I made a decision, like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something to honor this, and it's not going to be what I know. It's going to be something different. And it took a lot of work to figure out what that meant for me. And I just happened to fall into teaching. It was not my calling. I was an athlete. I was very good at it. I just needed external investment to push me in the right direction. And I could have really done something with that. But it never happened. And so the decisions I had to make were oftentimes what I had to do to survive. So, I joined the Army. I hated that. There's a lot of good that came out of it for me, but knew that it wasn't the lifestyle I wanted to, live. So as soon as I had the opportunity, I found work in Alaska and worked up there for a decade and didn't have to do reserves, anything with the Army. Just got basically put on inactive ready reserves in case they needed me. And they, fortunately did it. So somebody, maybe it was like 92, 91, 92, Rick Ramirez up in Fort Collins had known me from football in Colorado State, asked me what I was doing, asked me if I wanted to come work with some, kids teaching football at junior high school at Lincoln, and that was my gateway into, the possibility of being a positive influence. And, just like that first year at West, that first year at Lincoln was crazy because I was the wild child, like that whole class, like your whole school was. I was the one that was like didn't understand, but I knew football, and I did really well with our team. Went undefeated and went to the championship, and unfortunately lost. But it was my first year out, and had a really good time doing it, and they invested in me to become a teacher. They put me in the classroom. They got me scholarships. They got me back in school, and they pushed me in a new direction, which led to my evolution today. And so, being that inner city kid, I never would have saw myself as getting a bachelor's degree, getting teaching endorsement in health and physical education, getting minors in art and science and philosophy, and then going and getting a master's in education from the University of Auburn Montgomery, and so it's like I would have never saw that being what my future was supposed to be, and I feel really good about the man that I am today and the way that I'm living, and like I said, so here we are, 2023, and it's like what choices are you and your listeners going to make to hold yourself accountable to the person that you want to be, and make sure that you make a wise decision about what that looks like, because I know what it's like to be young. I remember when I was 11 years old, I wanted to be a pirate gangster, have a ship, and yeah, I really did. It's like coming up with this plan, like how am I going to smuggle these drugs through the Caribbean on my pirate ship? This is like, that was like a long dream. I dreamt about that for a long time, well into my teens. I was just like, okay, maybe I need to give up that dream. Start thinking about things a little bit more healthy. But it's or you can make the mistakes and you can learn from them. Yeah. But it's not necessary in this moment in time. There's plenty of stories of the stupid things that humans have done throughout history to showcase that it isn't necessary to repeat. That you do have to put in some work, and you can make some choices, and it ain't going to be easy. But you can move in a direction away from all of the anger, all of the frustration, all of the depression, all of the pointing fingers at like all the shortcomings and how they're not working out for you. Or you can figure out how to be at peace regardless of circumstance. Right? Really hone into that Zen moment and be thankful for as much as you have or as little as you have. Because if you're not, you're doing it wrong. That's the truth, man. I just lost a friend not this Christmas, it's already been a year. But he took his own life because he was unhappy, and that dude had stacks. I mean, $1 million tractors, huge piece of property, mansion, beautiful wife, cars, trucks, everything. And just to be so unhappy with his existence that in a moment he just ended it. I mean, that's an absurdity of existence. It happens, but the lesson should be, if you're allowing yourself to get to that point, you're doing it wrong. You should never. You should be able to call yourself out and be like, hey, this isn't what I want. This isn't what I want to be, and choose something different and work towards it. Because nobody chooses to be a drug addict. They just end up there, right? Nobody chooses to be an alcoholic. They just end up there. And those addictive patterns of behavior can be recalibrated to serve you. Like, I'm going to get into, being in the gym, or I'm going to get into pursuing this career, or I'm going to get into raising this family in such a good way that I can be a parent that my kids are proud of. Just really embrace those things. I'm not going to tell you what those are. You have to choose and make those for yourself. But I think it's pretty common sense, and we know. Just, are you willing to put in the work? Right? Are you willing to put in the work is the real question, because it's real easy to make excuses. It's real easy to be a victim of circumstance. But to be victorious over your circumstances, I think it's just as easy. You'll find out that as much effort as you spend bitching and complaining. You could be lifting yourself up and moving yourself in a direction that's positive, and recognize, hey, exact same circumstance, but I feel a lot better about myself. So, and people want to be around me, and opportunity will come. Opportunity will come, because it doesn't come to those who don't want to, like, I just want to be me, and and if everybody keeps on telling you, you are the problem, then sometimes you got to take ownership of that equation. Be like, oh, this keeps coming out wrong because of me, not because of the circumstance. So that's my advice to all you listeners and to you guys. Really appreciate this opportunity. I hope you guys stay in touch, follow up. Check me out on Facebook and Instagram, Michael Alcazar, Alcazar, Inaction Climate Mitigation Brokerage. If you need any help with ecosystem services, whether it be tree trimming, gardening, landscaping stuff, reach out to me. Let's leave things better than we found them.
Amen.
Yeah, let's do it.
Thanks again for coming. Would love to have you back. Truly appreciate it, sir.
All right. You guys have a beautiful rest of your season, and enjoy yourselves. Peace.
Blessings.
Thank y'all for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Peace and love.
Peace.